The 30th of October, 1922. Benito Mussolini comes to power in Italy after the March on Rome, as fascist pressure compels the government to hand him authority. He soon establishes a dictatorship, suppressing political opposition and controlling the press. His regime demands loyalty to the state and glorifies aggressive nationalism, paving the way for persecution, war, and ultimately a fateful alliance with Nazi Germany. But behind the image of the all-powerful Duce lies a secret he wants to erase. Years before his rise, Mussolini had become involved with a young beautician who helped finance his early political career and gave him a son. As Mussolini consolidates power, she disappears from public view. Documents relating to their marriage vanish. Their son is taken away. In the end, she is officially declared insane and confined to a psychiatric asylum where she dies forgotten. Her name is Ida Dalser. Before the First World War, which began in July 1914, Benito Mussolini was still a rising socialist journalist rather than the future dictator of Italy. A gifted speaker and aggressive polemicist, he edited the socialist newspaper Avanti and built a reputation as one of the most radical voices in the Italian socialist movement. Around this time, he met Ida Dalser, a financially independent beautician from the town of Sopramonte, then part of Austria-Hungary. After graduating in Paris, Dalser moved to Milan, where she opened an elegant French-style beauty salon called the Oriental Salon of Hygiene and Beauty Mademoiselle Ida. Their relationship quickly became intense. Dalser admired Mussolini's ambition and political energy, while he relied heavily on her financial and personal support. As Europe moved closer to war, Mussolini suddenly abandoned his socialist opposition to conflict and began calling for Italy to enter the war against Germany and Austria-Hungary. His dramatic political shift led to his expulsion from the Socialist Party, which denounced him as a traitor. Determined to continue his political campaign, Mussolini founded his own newspaper, Il Popolo d'Italia. Dalser sold her beauty salon and invested large sums of money to help finance the project, leaving herself nearly penniless. At the same time, Mussolini secretly received financial support from French sources who wanted Italy to enter the war on the side of France and Britain. Dalser later claimed that part of this money had been funneled to Mussolini through intermediaries connected to the French government. The First World War had begun on the 28th of July, 1914, after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Austria-Hungary. Although Italy had originally been allied with Germany and Austria-Hungary, the country initially remained neutral. Italian nationalists hoped the war would allow Italy to seize territories controlled by Austria-Hungary, including regions where many ethnic Italians lived. In return for joining the Allies, Britain and France secretly promised Italy territorial gains after the war. When Italy entered the First World War in May 1915, Mussolini volunteered for military service in the Bersaglieri, an elite light infantry unit of the Italian army. In the same year, Dalser gave birth to their son, Benito Albino. In January 1916, Mussolini reportedly recognized the child as his son, giving him the Mussolini surname and legally obligating himself to provide financial support to Dalser and the boy. From the front, Mussolini sent Dalser passionate letters filled with affection and promises for the future. By this time, however, he was already maintaining a relationship with Rachele Guidi. Guidi had been part of Mussolini's life for years. The two had met in the city of Forlì before the First World War, and had remained closely involved for years before Mussolini rose to power. In September 1910, Guidi gave birth to their daughter, Ida, and she gradually became the woman presented to the public as Mussolini's legitimate partner. In February 1917, Mussolini was seriously wounded during a mortar training exercise behind the front lines and discharged from the army. While he was recovering in hospital in Milan, Dalser arrived to visit him, only to discover Rachele Guidi already at his bedside. Furious, the two women began shouting at one another beside Mussolini's hospital bed. Guidi screamed that she was the true Mrs. Mussolini, and the confrontation soon turned physical, while Mussolini lay helpless, unable to move. The conflict marked the growing collapse of Mussolini's relationship with Dalser. In December 1919, she returned to her hometown of Sopramonte and devoted herself entirely to raising young Benito Albino. 2 years later, in 1921, Dalser's sister, Adele, married Riccardo Paiker, who later assumed legal guardianship of the boy after the family moved to the city of Trento. From that point onward, Mussolini's son began using the surname Paiker instead of Mussolini. On the 30th of October 1922, Benito Mussolini came to power in Italy after the March on Rome, when fascist supporters forced the government to hand him authority. He soon established a dictatorship, suppressing political opposition, controlling the press, and promoting aggressive nationalism. His regime emphasized loyalty to the state, militarization of society, and expansionist ambitions aimed at restoring Italy's power and influence in Europe and beyond. After Mussolini became dictator of Italy, Dalser found herself increasingly isolated and placed under surveillance. The fascist authorities imposed restrictions on her movements in an effort to prevent her from leaving the city of Trento or publicly speaking about her relationship with Mussolini. In January 1925, Mussolini deposited 100,000 lire into a savings account for Benito Albino, though the boy would only gain access to the money once he reached adulthood. Dalser, however, refused to disappear quietly. She continued insisting that she was Mussolini's lawful first wife, and repeatedly tried to contact him directly. In the mid-1920s, she secretly traveled by train to Rome, hoping to meet Mussolini in person, but she was stopped before reaching Palazzo Venezia, Mussolini's headquarters in Rome. At the same time, tensions inside the family were growing. Riccardo Paiker, who had become the boy's legal guardian, increasingly complained about Dalser's emotional outbursts and wrote several letters to Mussolini's brother, Arnaldo, describing the situation. In one letter he wrote, "Unfortunately, my sister-in-law, Ida Dalser, during her hysterical and unstable episodes, becomes more troublesome and unbearable every day. I am even forced to avoid taking my wife to the countryside in Sopramonte in order to prevent further conflicts involving that unfortunate woman. Since I can no longer tolerate this situation, I have decided to sell the property as the only way to free myself from this terrible burden." In June 1925, Benito Albino was taken away from the Paiker family after local authorities appointed a new legal guardian loyal to the fascist regime. When police officers arrived to remove the boy, he became hysterical and had to be subdued with a handkerchief soaked in ether. From that moment onward, Benito Albino remained under close fascist supervision. He was later enrolled in the Italian Royal Navy, yet he continued insisting that Benito Mussolini was his father. In 1926, Dalser's situation deteriorated dramatically. after attempting to approach a government minister visiting Trento in order to speak publicly about her relationship with Mussolini and the treatment she had suffered. She was arrested by the police on orders from Rome. Dalser was first confined to the psychiatric asylum in the town of Pergine Valsugana and later transferred to the San Clemente Psychiatric Asylum in Venice. Although she was officially declared mentally unstable, little justified her confinement. Nevertheless, she was frequently locked in isolation cells, restrained in a straitjacket, and subjected to harsh treatments that gradually destroyed both her physical and mental health. In 1934, Dalser was briefly transferred back to Pergine Valsugana for Christmas and remained there until July 1935, when she escaped and managed to reach her hometown of Sopramonte. She was soon recaptured and permanently transferred back to the San Clemente Asylum in Venice. Ida Dalser was 57 years old when she died, allegedly from a cerebral hemorrhage, on the 3rd of December 1937 in the San Clemente Asylum. Benito Albino also became a target of the regime. He continued insisting that Benito Mussolini was his father and was eventually confined to a psychiatric asylum in the town of Mombello near Milan. According to local historian Carlo Piu, the admission was presented as voluntary, and the young man was placed in the ward for disturbed patients, despite the fact that the psychiatric examination conducted upon his admission literally stated that the patient pays attention during questioning, perception is alert. He is oriented, memory of both distant and recent events is preserved. Like his mother, he was officially described as a danger to himself and others. Benito Albino Mussolini was 26 years old when he died on the 26th of August, 1942, after undergoing repeated insulin-induced coma treatments. No written order from Mussolini directing their deaths has ever been discovered. Yet, in Fascist Italy, where power flowed directly from the Duce himself, it is virtually impossible to imagine that the imprisonment and destruction of his alleged wife and son could have occurred without his consent. The campaign to erase them from public life bore all the characteristics of a state operation carried out in Mussolini's interests and, ultimately, under his authority. Whether communicated verbally or through trusted intermediaries, the decision to silence them almost certainly originated at the highest levels of the fascist regime, and ultimately with Mussolini himself. Less than 3 years after Benito Albino's death, Fascist Italy collapsed as the Second World War turned against Mussolini and his alliance with Adolf Hitler. On the 28th of April, 1945, Italian partisans captured Benito Mussolini together with his longtime mistress, Clara Petacci, near the village of Giulino di Mezzegra in northern Italy, and both were shot. On the following day, the bodies of Mussolini, Petacci, and several other fascist officials were taken to Piazzale Loreto, a square in Milan, where an enraged crowd insulted and physically abused the corpses. The bodies were eventually hung upside down from the metal framework of a petrol station, while civilians gathered below, shouting, spitting, and throwing stones. The dictator who spent years destroying the lives of Ida Dalser and their son ultimately met a violent and humiliating end himself. The man who tried to erase them from history could not escape history's judgment in the end.
Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.